4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical, political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today is Sharon Halpern. Ms. Halpern is a brilliant former consultant to the defense industry. She's the wife and mother of a physician and future physicians, and an avid reader and podcast listener. Please join our discussion today on government services and other topics on your mind by calling 332-263-3300. That's 332-263-3300. And now, Mr. Davis and Ms. Halpern.
Good evening, welcome. It's great to be back with you, my cherished listeners, and I think we're in for an exciting evening discussion and perhaps debate, hopefully friendly debate. And I invite you, if you have any differences of opinion or any agreements or have any questions unrelated to the subject we're discussing, please call in. I love to listen to your wisdom because I learn more from your wisdom than repeating what I know. So welcome, and let's start off. The subject is Biden doing the right thing? Has he done the right thing by proposing eliminating some of the debt, first $10,000 worth, and then as much as $20,000 for those less fortunate that were fortunate enough to get Pell Grants. So he would give them, because they're of a lower income bracket and they got a different kind of subsidy from the government, they would get $20,000 off. So to start it off, Sharon disagrees with everything I say. Oh, everything?
Not everything.
Not everything. She agrees that it's 6:30 p.m. or thereabout. But
Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you.
I take issue with a brilliant guy. I think he's brilliant and I loved listening to him, but I don't agree with most of what he says. So instead of having Ben Shapiro as my adversary tonight, or as my counter, I'm having Sharon Shapiro. She's, I think, a little smarter than he is, but
Well, Ben wasn't available tonight.
Thank you for coming at the last
anyway, you
minute.
might notice the difference. She's female and he's male, but these days it's hard to tell. Anyway, Sharon, do you want to say something about this issue of the government paying down the debt of all those students who borrowed and can't pay it back or won't pay it back, and relative to the ones that may be upset because they did pay it back and feel like, well, I'm
They feel like
screwed.
chumps.
Right, like chumps, and also taxpayers who feel they work for the money and they pay their taxes, and why should it go for people that are living off the government and refuse to pay debt that incurred?
No, well, in theory, it sounds like a very good idea because people definitely are struggling, and it would, and it is very difficult in the current economic situation with the pandemic. I don't think it was a bad idea necessarily to suspend the payments during the height of COVID, but now we're in an inflationary cycle, and this I feel is just going to basically pour gasoline on an already raging inflationary fire, and it's not going to benefit the economy. And additionally, I think it's also going to stoke a lot of resentment in terms of class warfare in the country. Because here you have a lot of blue collar workers who didn't go to college. They, after high school, they maybe became mechanics, they worked very hard, and they didn't go to college. They didn't major in gender studies or interpretive dance. And they went to work, they worked hard, and, really tried to, get their own version of the American dream. And now they're being told that their tax dollars have to go and subsidize people who've been, maybe going to party schools for 4 years and, didn't save and think about the future. So I think it's not good for the country in a variety of ways.
I take it you don't think it's vitally important to have people taking degrees in interpretive dancing.
Not that I have anything against it, but if you're taking out loans for it, I don't think that the American taxpayer should have to subsidize
I couldn't
that.
agree with you more on that score. But in terms of the inflationary impact, first, Donald Trump gave a $200 million tax cut to those that don't need it, that are wealthy. The top 2%, 5% got 80% of the tax cut, $2 trillion. And nobody's complained, or very few complained, that it's inflationary or it's unfair. It went through like it almost didn't matter. It increased our debt. So all those arguments are nonsense as compared to the size of this forgiveness. Number two, the people that are getting, many of the people that are getting this consideration, major consideration from Biden, are now people that are totally broke, may not even have jobs, and are relatively hopeless. And they excuse me. I wanted to show you my great knees, but they're telling me I shouldn't expose them. Anyway, where was I before I exposed my knees? Oh, they're back up again.
About the
You
people being broke.
don't see them now, do you?
I can't see it right now.
Okay. My knees are under the desk, so I don't have you don't have to worry.
That's for a different show.
Completely different.
So they're totally hopeless, and of all things, they're almost the only group that's uniquely prohibited from going into bankruptcy. In other words, billionaires, very wealthy people, when they're in this strait, declare bankruptcy. For example, Trump, who was a billionaire, multi-billionaire, has on at least 5 or 6 occasions gotten off his debt, totally off his debt, by declaring bankruptcy. And he was still very wealthy after he declared debt, but the people who he owed the money to lost that money.
Right. So two wrongs don't make a right, though. I don't know if
No,
that's
but
the
I'm
answer.
saying, when you criticize Biden for doing that, you have to recognize that one of the reasons bankruptcy laws were passed was because in the old days, if somebody was in debt and they couldn't pay it back, they were locked up in jail till they could pay it back. And
Right.
they could never pay it back because they couldn't earn any money while they were in jail.
Yeah, not advocating debtor's prison.
No, so that was the reason for bankruptcy. And here, the only ones they said that have to pay it back and can't go into bankruptcy are these students who were screwed by the government because the government was in complicity with the phony institutions, supposed education institutions, were set up to give degrees or certificates of graduation or diplomas, whatever. And I'll tell you the most interesting direct experience I had. I have a Russian friend, an immigrant, whose son, very bright guy, was hired to recruit students to attend these schools. And he got a bonus for every student that he signed, whether they were qualified, whether they had any background, and for the courses that were irrelevant, like
Interpretive dance.
interpretive dancing and courses that would never get them a job or a degree, and they're incurring debt. But they were talked into it by this young guy who got a bonus, and he got a list of and people that could hardly graduate high school, that many minorities that weren't capable of handling the role of a real college, and should have been maybe put into something like vocational studies where they got a career out of that.
I agree with you 100% on what you're saying.
Because
That's the source of the problem.
oh, if you agree with me, you're at the wrong guest.
So I have to leave. I have to get Ben. No, that really is the source of the problem here. That you're having a whole army of Starbucks baristas who have fancy college degrees, but which are worthless. Do you need to have a college degree to work at Starbucks? I like my coffee to be done properly also, but I don't think you need a college or a graduate degree to do that, and that's the problem in this country.
No, but I'm talking about the complicity of the United States government so readily offering these students that had no background, no competency, nothing, and these schools that were totally phony, and you knew that they're given degrees that would never get them a job.
Like Trump
and sign
University.
up for, and Trump's only university, right? I forgot about that. That's supposedly teaching you how to get rich, as he did by investing in real estate. He forgets sometimes that he inherited, I think, early at his birth, $400 million. So if you had to start at $400 million, that might be good training.
Can I ask
Sure.
both of you? So there are two parts that I've heard discussed about the student loans that are one that everybody talks about. That's the 10,000 or the 20,000, depending on Pell Grants. The other part of this is that if people are making the newly calculated payments on time, they don't get charged interest for any month in which they make their payment. Because one of the problems has been, again, sort of uniquely to this type of loan, is that the interest instantly gets capitalized, and so they end up paying these huge balloon sums that are many times more than what they originally paid. So that's one of the less discussed planks here, is he's going to do away with the interest payments, the interest, if they're paying on time. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think there should be, based on circumstances, that so someone who's, so you're talking about, what is it, $125,000, I believe is
And
the,
less.
right. So let's say you have someone who maybe meets that threshold, but they're, let's say, going to be a surgeon, and at this point, so down, so maybe they meet the criteria now, but then, a little bit down the road, they're going to be very, very well compensated. And here, you're not really necessarily helping the poorest people. You're say that you're against, let's say, helping the rich who don't need it, but in this particular case, it's not going to have the intended consequences. And I think the big problem here is that this just keeps adding to the inflation of college tuition in general. If you look at the statistics, college tuition in the last number of years has risen well above the regular inflation rate. And the reason for that is because the government keeps subsidizing it. So they're building, they have lazy rivers in colleges.
What does that mean?
They keep making all these amenities, like they have to, like 5-star hotel amenities. So they'll have like water parks, so in colleges. Look, my parents benefited, from the CUNY system. They would have never been able to afford to go to college. I went to Brooklyn College for free, and I'm very grateful that they had that opportunity. But they didn't have, Olympic-sized pools or whatever. It was very bare bones. They got a world-class education that was probably comparable to any Ivy League education, in my opinion.
I went to the same school.
All
Brooklyn
right. So,
College for free.
exactly, and I think that that's, that's wonderful. But now they keep hiring more and more administrators, which doesn't necessarily contribute to the quality of education. And additionally, the requirements for various fields keep increasing to keep people in school longer. I don't necessarily think that you need to eat. Look, I was in computers, and 4 years. I really I did learn things, and I'm not saying I didn't learn anything, but my real skill set was obtained on the job. So my going to college made me trainable. So I don't think that, and they keep now a bachelor's degree. When I went, a bachelor's degree was really sufficient for many jobs that I had. A bachelor's degree would not be sufficient anymore, but I don't think having a master's level training would have really added that much value.
In Europe, you go right into your specialty. You don't bother with all these courses that you're never going to use. You come out of high school and you say, I want to be a doctor, and they send you into
I disagree with Ben Shapiro majorly in a sense. He says it's a waste of time to go to college.
And I didn't say
Because,
that.
no, he says that.
Right.
He says he didn't learn anything. He didn't. Maybe it helped him get to law school. He plays it down. And I have to tell you, the president of Harvard, formerly, years back, said it. If he had
Lord Summers?
Pardon me, no, way before him. He wasn't born yet when this guy said it. He said, if I had a limited amount of money and I was head of a college, first thing I'd build is dormitories. Because you get the most out of interacting with your contemporaries, with your peers. So
But that could be a graduate
that would be
school.
that's college.
Wait, I want to just say something. I'm here. Welcome.
Welcome.
I've been displaced. It's an
You can never be
honor.
replaced.
It's an honor to be here with my father again. So I went to college. I know it's hard to believe. Back in the day, I looked so young, but I already went to college, and then I switched after going to Brooklyn College for 1 year. I actually switched to Stern College, Yeshiva University, which has a dorm, and I found that I agree with you. The dorm is the place where you have life experiences, but I think there's a balance here. I tend to see both sides. That's why I'm in the middle. I think in your day, college was
You
the
have to hear
entree.
the rest of what he said.
But I
He
also
didn't
think
finish. He didn't finish with. He said, if I had a limited amount of money, the first thing I'd do was build dormitories.
good,
If I had additional money, I'd build libraries.
right?
So today maybe you wouldn't need to because
Everything is online.
everything is online, which is great. And third thing, he said, if I had enough money, then I'd build classrooms. So what Ben Shapiro says, he talks about it like it's a trade school and you didn't get total training to get a job right away. And there's a lot wrong with college and there's a lot wrong with education because they teach so many things that you never use in life, like advanced algebra and trigonometry and so many things. They don't teach the basic things that you need in life from the very start. How to be friends with somebody, how to have a companion, how to enter a relationship with the opposite sex or even the same sex these days, in marriage and in life. How to bring a baby into this world. They know how to bring a baby into this world, but after that they don't know how to.
But they're not teaching those
There's
things.
zero
He's saying
training.
we're not teaching it. That's the
I'm
problem.
saying they don't teach you anything that's of value, and they don't
Life
teach you when you
skills,
get
life
out.
skills.
So that's why
And when
what
you
is
get out,
college
you don't.
teaching you then?
And when you get out, you don't even have a career unless you specialize in something like she did in computer things.
Well, I think that's a big handicap that you have come out without having any kind of degree that you could use for further education, except maybe a CPA, people who go. And I think they should have more of the trade skills, and I think that it should be recognized. And also, as you said, the three things, the dorm, the library, and what was your third thing? The most important is, if you had more money, classrooms. Well, today, the classroom, is my point, is obsolete because people are able to learn online, but what they're missing is human relations and skills, and that's I think, the biggest handicap.
What's the guy out of Montreal, out of Canada? that said,
With Jordan Peterson?
no.
What did he say? Let's talk about what he said, then we'll see who it is.
Today, the message is the medium.
Right.
In other words, when he said, when you go into the classroom, you're locking yourself away from knowledge, because
The ivory tower.
on the what do you call it?
On the internet,
On
you
the
can find much
internet,
more.
you get more knowledge than you could ever get in a classroom.
But you know what you're missing in the classroom? Because there's the interaction. People
Exactly.
don't know how to talk anymore, and they need mega stimuli.
Yeah.
It's not enough to have a teacher. While they're looking at the teacher, they're typing, they're looking at the friend, everything. Nobody has attention. This show is 59 minutes longer than most people's attention span, and we only watch because you're
I'll cut
brilliant.
it down to 1 minute.
Remember that book that was out for Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten? That's very, today higher education is not what it used to be, and it's just too many, we're just perpetuating the cycle, and
It
unfortunately.
should be, but not in the same way, because you need the higher education, but it has to be adjusted. And you know what else? The teacher-student
I want to
relationships.
get back to Biden's approach
Yeah.
of forgiving
Yes, okay.
and the
Forgive me, I have to
different
step aside 1
and the
second.
different way different segments of society are treated. I don't
Oh,
know.
he
I
did.
just wanna say that
Another,
I have
another,
another big mistake.
my big mistake was having 4 daughters. I never get a word in edgewise.
That's
go
why
ahead.
I need the show.
I happen to know a lot of people who are working hard as can be, and they are still not able to pay off their debts because from that they got for college or for graduate school, and those weren't forgiven, and they are not in the top echelon, and they're working like dogs. So why is it fair that these people who do no work and
They should have never been given loans.
they
The
couldn't
government was
afford it otherwise?
complicit.
That
Oh,
exactly.
you're
the-
saying the poor people shouldn't have given
No,
given
The
money?
government is
The government
complicit.
gives loans to, you didn't hear what I said.
Yes,
That even
but-
people who
To
shouldn't be in
everybody.
college.
This
But
fellow
then
who's
how could they have
recruited,
gotten in? A lot of them can't afford to go.
they shouldn't go.
Why?
Not everybody has to go to
But
college.
those are the smart people.
No,
Those
No,
top
those
top
people should go.
people
those
that
top
aren't
people-
qualified shouldn't go to college. They should do something that prepares them for a career. And the government
stay out of
allows
it.
them to borrow for any money to
No,
take.
I agree. I think
Let me give you
all
a
this
good,
college
even
is
good
silly. I think they
example.
should go right through
Even
career
examples
training.
where they graduate, where they put in work and graduate and do something and get a somewhat of a decent degree, but it's in English or history or black studies, all of which don't prepare you for any jobs. You can't, unless you're going to be a professor, you can't get a job in
Right, so
English.
that's why we're saying that the college is a waste, unless
I'm
they.
saying
They should have
shouldn't.
skin in the game.
The government shouldn't, it was complicit by giving loans to people that should never get them.
But what about a psychologist or somebody who's going to go on to get an MBA? or something?
Absolutely, they should,
So-
but they have to be qualified.
So they're
have to be-
qualified. They're
They're not
qualified.
qualified if they could, that had a 60 average in high school.
Why do they have a 60
I'm
average?
telling you that,
No, but
I'm
people.
saying
you
the
didn't
people.
hear what I said. I had a friend,
No, I
he
totally
has
get
a
what you're saying.
son who spent
right.
all his time, he got a bonus for anybody he signed up. Going in, I knew that the people he signed up would never get a degree, they'd get a piece of paper, but
Okay,
nothing.
but I know, what I'm saying is I know people who get all A's and are top in their field right now, and they still owe the government money, and their loans haven't been forgiven. Now, why is that fair?
I don't know.
No,
My
so there
pers-
should be
Because-
some kind of
Well, they're in a
Right.
higher echelon.
No.
They're in a higher
So,
tax
so are you
bracket, so
arguing,
they-
are you
Life
arguing that
isn't
more
perfect.
people should be getting loan forgiveness or fewer people should be getting loan
Well, it
forgiveness?
should be fair. Why do they get it and not others? Why do the ones who don't work and don't make money?
Why does Trump get forgiven 5 or 6 times, but by going into
I'm not saying
bankruptcy?
he's right or they're right, but
not
why
he's
do-
right or
why
wrong.
does anyone
No,
do
why
it?
does the government pass laws that only these students that make these loans for
They all do it for the
government?
same reason. They want
government-
the votes.
But you know how you would
No,
solve
No,
this
no,
problem?
why, no.
If-
Why
Oh, no.
does the government allow somebody who's wealthy, like Trump, 5 or 6 times get off hundreds of millions of in debt, but there's no law against that. There's a law that allows them to do that, but there's a law that prevents only this group, no other group in society, from declaring bankruptcy. How do you like that?
But there are other avenues to
No,
have.
and I'll tell you other things that are favorable to the better off, the well off than the government doesn't allow. The government has passed, the Congress has passed legislation that the largest consumer of drugs, Medicare, is not allowed to negotiate for lower prices with the drug companies.
But
Who does that protect? The
Big
pharmacy, big pharma.
Because they have big lobbyists, all the.
I'm just saying, there's another thing.
But recently,
If somebody-
that got amended. I mean, that just
Yeah,
legislated.
but I'm saying that it got ended after years and years, and we'll see how much they do with it. Number two, because they're still lobbyists and they'll still badger them and so forth. They're still powerful, and they have so much leverage they could do it easily. And sadly, the drugs that our consumers pay, particularly Medicare, is by far higher than the cost of drugs in any other country in the world.
Well, the one that got excluded from that new was insulin. Like they weren't going to cap insulin, I think, was under the new things. But anyway, back to
That's terrible.
That-
But you know how you would solve this whole problem also about with colleges, because they're very much responsible for this, because this is business for them, and they're, like I said, recruiting
The
people who want
government,
to.
the government is
Right, so-
responsible by giving these loans
That's right. They
to
should.
unqualified
I
people.
agree with you. So what
You
they
don't get into college unless you prove you're qualified. The government shouldn't give you loans unless you
It
have
should-
some record that shows you're qualified.
It should be like a private loan. If I
Or
wanted to
if
start
they
a
were-
business, I have to go to a banker and I have to show them a viable business plan. It's the same thing that if someone is going to
Yeah.
college and they're going to
But
major
at
in
the end
something
of the-
useful,
but at
so
the-
the colleges should have to bear some of the
Sharon,
loan.
but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you can't pay the bank back, you tell them I'm going into bankruptcy.
Yeah, so the college.
Why would they pass legislation that
Mm.
students can't declare bankruptcy? When
That's
they're
one
out
of
of
those-
No, but
jobs,
you do have a point.
when they're out
there.
of jobs and broke.
Hang
I'll
on,
tell you,
I-
But
I'll
they
give
shouldn't
you,
be allowed
I'll give
to
you
take out
another,
these loans
I'll
to
give you
begin with.
another instance how special.
But you were the one who fought that we should let all these minorities into the colleges.
No, I said we should allow, like
Qualified.
every other
It should
country,
be meritocracy.
we're the richest country in the world, and other countries have available college, free college, like Brooklyn College
Right.
was. So we should have that, but again, only for qualified
Right, the
people.
Brooklyn College was not for everyone.
Yeah.
You had to
I-
have meet
Still have
criteria.
grades.
I couldn't get
Okay.
in.
All
I
right.
had to pay the first 2 years.
Time out. There's something that happened in the course of the last 30 years where state colleges used to be, if not completely free, nominally free. And that was largely because they were subsidized at the state level.
Right.
During this time period, there is no longer the same reservoir of state taxes, and they cut the university systems out of the loop. And so universities are now self-supporting in a way that they weren't back when everybody had free college. So it used to be that the government did subsidize, however, it was happening at a state level.
Right, so private industry really also needs to get involved because they're the ones who need the workers. So there should be, so college should,
The name of that is fat chance.
but I'm saying, well, that's where the
This-
burden needs to
let
be
me tell-
shifted.
Let me tell you, to begin with, the trouble with this country is that our Constitution or our, what's the Ten Commandments, the Bill of Rights.
The Bill of Rights, yeah,
The
Constitution.
Ten Commandments.
It doesn't say the right for free education,
No,
college education.
But our forefathers, in their wisdom, advised us that we should work to make a more perfect union and provide liberty, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We've evolved to the point where we pursue not what those the three requirements are. We provide for life, we provide for liberty, but we provide for ever-growing gross domestic product, gross national product, and ever larger profits. Everything goes to profits. And I started to tell you, one of the
Capitalism.
reasons, one of the interesting reasons, or special treatments, is to the firearms industry, to the gun industry, because if somebody in the gun industry sells an assault weapon to somebody who was not qualified to get it, who had some record that was not, would never allow them to get it, and this person goes out and buys an assault weapon and enacts
An act of mass violence.
a mass murder, a mass assault. You're not allowed to sue the gun company. The only industry you can't sue. Can you imagine that? Shows you the relative treatment of those in power and those with money. And I just read that during this pandemic, the gun industry did better than they ever did before. They made $3 billion during this. No wonder the National Rifle Association, NRA, has so much money to spend to pay for Congress. In this country, we buy Congress. The majority of the people could want something, and it's irrelevant because they vote for whatever the donors.
Well, that's politics.
It's not politics.
Well, look, Joe Biden
It's
is using
legal.
politics now to buy votes for the upcoming election
It's
with
legalized.
this tactic as
It's
well.
legalized bribery, and it shouldn't exist.
Yep.
And
This is
one-
also
But
that's
this is
what's
one
also
wrong to
bribery.
doing it?
This
That's
is
one
also
of the,
bribery.
that's one of the reasons we're number 16 in the world in happiness, when even Israel's ahead of us, number 10. We're the wealthiest country in the world. We should be number 1. But these other countries, you know which countries are number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5?
A Scandinavian country.
You got it.
Correct.
Sweden, Denmark,
But because we're
Finland.
raising a bunch of snowflakes also who, like we have to have all these trigger warnings on campuses, all the snowflakes. And see, and also college has become a very different place. It's not the free exchange of ideas. Now it's just, you can't offend anyone, and if you don't have the woke culture. So yeah, there's a
Bull.
lot
Bull.
systemically wrong with
Well, the gun lobby rules and profits rule. You know why?
well, profit, that's
No, you know how
capitalism.
they're going to save kids? Instead of getting rid of assault weapons and weapons in general, which is all bull, there's no amendment that says, what is it, the Fifth Amendment?
What the Second
Second
Amendment
Amendment.
is for gun rights.
But it says, number 1, a well-armed militia, so everyone is allowed to own a gun. Why did they preface it by a well-armed militia?
Well regulated.
They don't use extra words.
Well, I may not be in favor of owning assault weapons, but I do believe in
I don't believe in anybody having a gun.
I'll tell you, if Jews
unless
in Nazi Germany had guns,
they'd
things
be
might,
just as dead, or more dead.
things
They-
might have been a
Bull.
little bit that we were totally
Bull.
unarmed
Bull.
or whatever.
Pick-
I feel, look, I'll tell you
Let me
something,
tell you
during
something.
Sandy,
I wouldn't have a gun because the minute I have a gun and then somebody comes in with a gun and wants to do something, I roll over, I behave as whatever he says. If I pull out a gun, I'm more likely to be dead than if I had no gun. So you rarely save lives. You know, when it was
it does
40
hold them.
people killed in a theater in Colorado, they said if a man with a gun, an honest man with a gun was there and had a gun, he could have shot the guy who killed the 40 people. You know how many people would have got shot? Because number 1, the people with guns don't know who the guy is shooting. Number 2, even police that are trained never hit the guy. And if they took out their guns, they would have shot another 40 people in the audience. So it doesn't protect you.
I know.
It's bull. That's
Look at that. The idea of having
that's the advertising
Look,
of
I'll
the,
tell
of
you
the gun
something.
lobby.
during
Let your guest speak.
So during, like, let's say when we had Hurricane Sandy and the power was off, I'll tell you the truth, I had a gun in my house and I was terrified about looters at that time because I remember, I'm old enough to remember, the blackout in New York
Yeah,
City.
but you didn't get killed.
Well,
But
there was someone lurking out,
No,
and I
but-
did get the gun out.
if they looted, you'd be looted, but you'd still be alive.
That's
If you
not
took
necessarily
What if you
true.
took, why? They
No,
don't-
no, not
they don't-
people that aren't necessarily.
If you give them what they want, they really kill
That's
you.
look what's going on now with all the anti-Semitic violence. People that it's not that they're looking for money or to rob people. There's
But
just
should-
indiscriminate
The
violence.
ones that are attacking should never have guns. There's no reason why people
But
should
it's
have
the
guns.
criminals who get
This
the
is the
guns.
only country in the world that has mass slaughters. The only country. How come?
Well, it's also
And
because
we have,
it's it's
and
not
we have the
emoji-
most, we have the most guns, the most self-protection. That's bull. That's the argument of the the National Rifle Association.
But okay, it's still,
Guns
but it's in the
don't-
Constitution.
Guns
and-
don't protect
I mean,
you.
it's in the
It's
Bill
not
of
in-
Rights or
it's
whatever.
not in, no, it's not. It says,
Yep.
it says, what do you call it?
Well, the interpretation by the Supreme Court by Scalia does grant the current gun laws. But let's go
Okay,
back
yeah,
to
that's the-
they
education.
made a
Let's
better,
go,
Edu-
let's
yeah,
go
they
back
made
to
it-
the
they made it-
education loans.
Where's
they made a better interpretation, and not only that, the Scalias and the ones that follow, the originalists, that you've got to read it as is ridiculous, because everything that works should have a human uh, evolution to improve. It is instead to make a more perfect union. They had good ideas. They didn't have the perfect. It says in the Bible, an eye for an eye. We
Yes.
evolved it so
So
we're
it
more,
was
never
we're,
meant to
we're
be
more,
taken
we're
literally.
more human.
So you're not.
So we
you're,
say
you're not
there's
a,
other
you're
ways
not
to
a
deal with that.
constitutional originalist. You disagree with those who
No,
are.
I'm one that believes
Evolutionists.
in evolving to a better. They were brilliant, but they weren't perfect. And they even said we got to make a more perfect union.
Well, that's why I have
Realizing
amendments.
what?
That's why they allowed for amendments, because they realized that times would change. But
Well,
you're still.
Sharon is my guest. Let us speak.
So,
I'll
but
keep
getting
quiet.
back to about college tuitions, that really the universities that are these degree mills should really have some accountability, and they should be responsible that have the debt. That that if someone defaults on the debt, that it comes out of their pocket. Here they get the money up front, and it doesn't. And also, you look at today, the graduation rate. I think that it's under 50% that graduate in 4 years as a whole. It takes, I think, and it's maybe 50 or 60% after 6 years that get a bachelor's degree. And community college is even worse. So here they're taking on all this debt, and they're not even getting a degree, which could help them
And they
earn.
don't get a job with a degree.
No, so but even if they're not even getting a degree. So here
So
it's the
in-
only kind of thing that here they're paying for something and they're not even getting it. So no, it
So
really is a bit.
those that attend the COLA never get a job, never get a degree.
Oh, we're getting
never-
into a different
never
topic.
get- But that's all right. And they're never studying to be, if they were studying to be, if they were of that level, to be head
Their
of,
wives
head
are
of,
the ones who
head of
study for this.
institutions, to be
Well, don't you know everyone is going to be a gadol hadar?
no, to be Rosh Hashivas, to be, then it's all right. But they do it to evade, in Israel, they do it to evade the draft, and it leads to a lot of resentment, and it's wrong. They should be the ones that serve most.
Well, see, that's all. So you're getting at a problem that having a prescription and saying that there is one answer for all of society is a very big problem. Whether it's for everyone to go into Kollel, and whether it's everyone to have a college degree. To tell you the truth, I would prefer, I would love to have a good air conditioner repairman than someone who has a PhD in English literature coming to my house, and I would pay them a lot more. It's it's capitalism.
My prescription is follow what they said: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So the judgment should be: is what you're doing adding to the total happiness of your community and your country, just as you do with your family.
But there are better. Look, even a lot of liberals are against Biden's plan. Like, for example, Lawrence Summers, the former Treasury Secretary.
What about him?
So he's very outspoken about this because he thinks that it's going to be extremely
It
inflationary.
proves that even bright guys are often wrong.
And also Paul Begala, the Clinton campaign manager, so he's very liberal. So he feels that, believe me, he's no conservative, and he feels like for example, why don't we go and help out people who've incurred tremendous medical debt
Why don't,
with who uninsured people, and and for they didn't have the choice. If
Sharon,
someone has cancer,
Sharon,
not a choice.
why don't they feel the same way about not letting Trump get off the debt when he's still a billionaire? Why don't they feel that way? It shows you the mistreatment. The minute it's the lesser people, the lower people, them you could mistreat. You don't have to give them any benefits. But if the people are wealthy, then you got to protect them from any of the ravages of
But this
life.
is discriminating against people, let's say car mechanics, or people like went to trade school and they did all the right thing, and here they're paying their taxes, and here they're subsidizing. They didn't have any college debt.
So
why are they being asked to subsidize this, or why?
It's not subsidizing. The government
they're paying taxes.
The government is guilty by their complicity. They should have never given these loans because they know. I knew going in that they wouldn't get their money back. And I'm not an expert in education or in finance. I'm an expert in
Yeah, but
finance.
now you have to go forward. Now, okay, now they gave
So
you.
so you got to do the same thing for the lowest people that you did for the richest people.
But you're not
Which
doing it. What about the middle
why
people?
do you have to do it?
Yeah, but what about
Why
the
do you
middle
have to do it for Trump?
Well, look at so
For
talking about
Trump go forward, you forgive him hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. Trump airline went broke. His place in Atlantic City went broke.
Okay.
Everything he's been
But
involved
also,
with
but
went
most
broke.
higher
And
income.
he gets waived. Why are you so tolerant?
I'm not saying-
Why
I'm
is
not
I'm not saying I'm necessarily so tolerant.
why
that
is the people you just mentioned?
Well,
What's his name?
Bagala or Summers.
Yeah, why are they?
No,
Okay.
they're looking.
I
No,
have-
why are they so
Can I read
against this?
you?
But that they're not against forgiving millionaires and billionaires.
No, I think that they probably are against. I think it
They're
should
not-
be a
I
little
never
bit harder
I
to
never heard one word against any of it.
look.
Because they feel it's right. Otherwise, you put them in jail.
No, see, why don't we
Forever.
have forgiveness for people who are in debt that's crushing for people who have medical illnesses, whatever, for no, they didn't ask to have a serious illness, and let's say they weren't, and they're.
That's why we should have universal medical care.
Okay,
There's a big group between the very poor who's getting it back and the few very rich on the top.
Why can't we, the richest country in the world, offer the same things that they offer in the Scandinavian countries?
I mean, about health care. So look,
Health care, free college for those that are qualified, not college for everybody.
all, yeah, no, I agree with you on that, but also
We're the
health
richest
care.
country in the world.
But who's gonna pay for that? Also, like the health care. So the problem is also that
What do you mean,
if you in a
What do you
place
mean,
like
who's going to pay for it?
well, that's there is
Do
an
you know how much we
armament.
spend on defense?
Well, we need
And
to.
we don't need it. We go into wars that we shouldn't be
Well,
in.
that's another thing. Biden with the fiasco in Afghanistan.
It's no fiasco. I think he did great. We finally got out after 20 years. Otherwise, we'd still be there.
Yeah, and we
He had
gave
one-
it and
he
we
had
gave
one-
it back to the Taliban.
We had one bad day and we got out. He handled it poorly, or his military handled it poorly. Eisenhower, who was the most successful general and military man in the history of our country. He won the Second World War. Then he became president. Usually, after 8 years he was 8 years president. At the end of 8 years, when they give a speech, they talk about how well they did, how
The industrial military
no,
complex.
how their performance was great. He just said one thing. He said, beware of the military-industrial complex. And that's what we have. Because why are they so powerful? Because all 50 states have major contractors that get employment from military contracts.
Look, I happen to have been one of them, and I'll tell you something. That
You're
not me
she's
personally.
the one that's guilty. My guest.
But the truth be told, though, look, a lot of technology and advancement in society comes out of the research and the investment that's made in this. And look, obviously, the world is a dangerous place. We can't be isolationist. I mean, you saw what happened with people like Chamberlain during World War II. We can't go and.
What do you mean? What happened with Chamberlain in World War II?
Well, his policy of appeasement and isolationism.
He just did one thing. He said, I gave them Czechoslovakia.
And we see how well
I
that
know,
turned out.
and no, I'll tell you. And he said, you know, he's pleased because that's going to lead
Peace
for
in
quite-
our
peace,
time.
peace forever. And then Germany attacked. So whether he appeased or not, he was going to get the same result. I thought we should have appeased Russia before we went to war with the Ukraine, because Russia said, we just don't want you to let Ukraine in. And
Well, I think we're spending way too much money in
no, but
Ukraine.
why don't you try appeasing before you go to war? I said right away, you're in danger of having a nuclear war. Right now, you're in danger of having
Well, I think Biden bears a lot of responsibility with his wishy-washiness. Look, and I'm not in favor of all of Trump's.
Wishy-washy what?
No, because I don't think whatever you say about Trump, and I'm not, one of these. What are they? The extreme MAGA people that Biden has basically written off and accuses of ruining the country. But he's, because of his attitude, I think Putin felt emboldened. I don't think that had Trump, whatever you say about him, I don't think he would have done this had Trump
Look,
been
Trump used to be
president.
one of my best friends.
Not
I
anymore.
gave a talk. They asked me to introduce him at an
We're gonna
event
have a call.
in Philadelphia. That Eisenhower, some institution that Eisenhower started, some foundation to memorialize. What place was that? The Battle of
Gettysburg?
no, close.
I'm sorry, are we
Well,
Civil War?
No, that Eisen set this up to memorialize outside of Philadelphia. Len knows it right
Okay,
away.
sorry.
A major battle. Anyway, so they were honoring Donald Trump. So they asked me, would I come down? I was on the trustee too. So would I come down to Philadelphia and introduce Donald Trump? So I said I'd be pleased to. So I came down and I said, this is the greatest guy, fabulous. He developed everybody was trying to improve Central Park ice skating. He did it in no time at all. He builds the most amazing places throughout the world. And he's a genius, and he was so pleased because he was not married at the time and he had a supermodel with him. And so he came up and kissed me at the end, and the supermodel couldn't wait to get him back in the hotel. And after that, whenever he introduced me, he said, Morty Davis, the greatest guy in the world. I'll show you, where's my book?
It's right there.
Where?
Right
No, I
behind.
have it right there.
Oh, okay.
Well, you see, the country is becoming
Yeah,
very divisive.
Look what Trump wrote.
I have to get my reading glasses. Okay. Morty Davis has written a chronicle of great triumphs. It is full of intriguing speculation and clear insights, provocative, challenging, and enlightening, and written by a unique man who really knows the score. Must read.
That's from Donald Trump. I loved him. When he used to introduce me, he used to say, Morty Davis, the greatest guy on
You see, but this is the
the
thing
number
that-
one guy on Wall Street. So why did I change? Valley Forge, that was it.
Valley
Forge.
Forge.
Everybody guesses Gettysburg.
Right, no, because when you were saying like Pennsylvania, I was thinking.
Valley Forge. So it was set up by Eisenhower to honor Valley Forge.
But truth be told, look, I agree there's a lot of waste in defense spending. I mean, as a person who, saw this.
What do you mean? There's a lot of waste. I want to ask you something. Do you think President Trump, President Biden, the congressmen, the senators, their children, the grandchildren, are going to get killed by a terrorist? We had a terrorist attack. 3,000 people were killed one day.
Yeah.
We have never even been invaded on our ground.
Well,
In all
that's
these
because
years.
we have invested, and doesn't happen by accident. It's the same thing like if you open up the borders and let everyone in that.
We're the most militaristic country in the world.
We have
We
to.
send arms to everybody, every country in
It's a
the world.
dangerous world.
No, but I'm telling you what they're going to die from. They're going to die from cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's,
Diabetes.
diabetes. Alzheimer's.
Hopefully
So
they won't
why don't
be.
we spend that $1 trillion on that to save those lives? We spend money to send people to kill. We send our own people our young people to die. We were 20 years in Afghanistan. For what? For
No,
what? Was there any reason
well,
to-
because we left
But no,
with no
was
plan.
there any reason to go into Afghanistan? We knew beforehand that Russia was fighting Afghanistan for 10 years and left with their tail behind their back. Why? 3,000 people were killed. So we should have gone after the guy, Osama bin Laden, and not go after the country.
Well, we do have to, there are a lot of
It's better-
unstable regimes out there.
But I'm saying defense should be against. We at least should have a defense budget and an offense budget. When I was a kid during the Second World War, you know what the Defense Department was called? The War Department.
Right.
After the war, they figured out that's not a good thing. We got to find a better. So I call it the Defense Department. At least if they'd say Defense Department and the Offense Department, maybe sometimes they vote against some of the things that are. No, we don't spend to deal with cancer. We got to beg with a collection box for people to support research and they're all going to die from it.
Well, it's also private industry. Whatever.
George Bush the father, and Barbara Bush lost a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, to cancer. Why don't they spend their money on that?
Look, we spend quite a lot of money on that.
Because we're corrupted.
No, but it's also defense spending has yielded a lot of very positive results. The internet, in spite of Al Gore claiming to have invented it, came from defense spending.
The research has, but not the defense spending.
Well, DARPA is the defense, so that's where the internet
so
came
we should
from.
fund DARPA, not military equipment.
But look, I'll tell you, I worked some of the projects that I personally worked with. I used to think, we used GPS technology at that time, and we're going back way back. And I used to think, wow, this would be a great thing for people, the average person to have used it, but it was like far too expensive. The fact that the defense investments in that.
I think DARPA is sensational, but the government could fund research all day long. Look,
they also fund computer science. I went to people like me went to that job.
You know what I find outrageous and ridiculous and inexplicable is that 50 years ago we landed a man on the moon. 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, 53 or 54 years ago, 1969, over 50 years ago. Now we're putting this thing, this new satellite or whatever it is.
Right, that's been having some problems.
No, we're putting 4 men on the moon. This is progress. We spent $1 trillion in that.
But you know how much also technology was developed from the moon? I mean, the idea of getting men on the moon necessarily, but the space program yielded so much technology, and like a lot of these scientists would not have had.
I'm saying we should fund research up the gazoo, but not waste it on after 50 years we're sending the same thing to the moon, and with all that expenditures we canceled it already 4 times because of technological problems.
You have to invest in order to get.
Let's invest in the things that save people instead of.
This could also save people.
Let's outlaw.
If we colonize Mars, we could go and solve all kinds of problems here on Earth.
We got enough trouble here. Unless we find an enemy that we could all be
Send them
against.
all to Mars.
No, we could all be against because clearly we all need enemies. But it's
very true.
It's it's against happiness to send our young people to die in the war. We lost in Afghanistan so much young men and women.
No, things were stabilized, and then we just
who
left.
cares about stabilized? We shouldn't have. We lost all these young people. That's our most valuable thing. At least, I'd be in favor of war if they said you can't draft anybody younger than 65. Then the guys over 65, if somebody's running away, they'd rather take a rest. And not only that, but if they got wounded or hurt, they got a Purple Heart, their wives would say, wow, my husband got a Purple Heart. Or if he got a Gold Star, at least he died a hero.
Because the hero is a veteran who unfortunately lost 2 legs in Afghanistan, and he went to join the military. Why? Because he wanted to get money to pay for college. And he says now he feels like an idiot that he says here he lost 2 legs
Right.
going to, and now loan forgiveness. He says he shouldn't have enlisted, and he feels like an idiot now.
He should have got free college, and he shouldn't be in fighting in a war.
Yes, but what do you say
Why,
to
why
someone
does
like
why
that?
does somebody who's the top military person ever representing the United States, and then was president for 8 years, why would he warn against? He's got a vested interest in military.
No, there is definitely a lot of waste and a lot of pork that's.
Forget about waste. What about losing our young people and our treasure?
But we do need a military because
We're
when you
worried
have
about-
actors like Iran or
We're
whatever,
worried
we
about
don't have a choice.
we're worried about forgiving the debt of students that can't pay, but the treasure that we spent in Afghanistan could pay for we spent trillions of dollars.
And it was all for naught. Like, how do you think that those veterans
we
who risked so much?
should have never been
But
there.
once we were there already, then to go and leave and with
I
no
felt-
planning.
I felt that was a brilliant move, because we're out of there finally. We'd be there another 20 years.
Look, at that point, they were very-
Everybody's making a judgment that day.
Look, and we're still
It
in
was killing-
Japan. We're still in South Korea. The Korean War has been over how long now?
Yeah,
And we still have troops there. But
we
well,
should-
and what would be if we didn't have? We could have
We should-
crazies like Kim
Well,
Jong
We
Un.
should
Trump,
be out
Trump
of-
had
we should-
negotiated the deal,
we
and
should
it
be
said
out
that
of all
everybody
the-
was leaving.
We should be out of all those places. You know something?
I mean, it's very.
We should follow the Monroe Doctrine, which said we should only get involved in our own part of the world, North and South America, and not interfere.
But unfortunately,
involved.
today
We-
the world comes to us,
I
and we're
don't
not.
know, we go to it. No, there's been no bombing of the U.S. in all the, or no
That's
fighting
because we
in
have
the
to,
U.S.
because
That's
of.
because they can't find
And
a
there've
way.
been plenty of threats. It's definitely. Been
Okay, we gotta wrap it up.
But
Sharon was terrific. She
Yeah.
aggravated the hell out of me. So that's a
Which is what
measure-
you love.
Which is a measure of how terrific she was.
Okay, but I
Thank
can
you,
still come
Sharon.
over.
Yeah, anytime. You could come again.
Okay,
We'll
thank
find
you.
another subject
A pleasure.
that we don't share. With,
But we all agree you have a wonderful family, huh? Right, that we agree.
Yeah, I don't know, because all my kids know I'm so anti-Trump. I think he's jeopardizing America and democracy and everything. And by not accepting the first guy that didn't accept a valid election and didn't turn it over, and still is claiming and is doing everything to undermine the government in January 6th and everything.
Well, you're not wrong about
If he
that.
gets elected again, we'll have a dictatorship.
Well, this
He is
country
a
survived
dictator.
this long.
He's a dictator.
Well, hopefully.
Why do you think?
Okay.
Why do you think it's somebody I loved?
Morty,
And that,
how about some happy words to send people off on the week?
No, so all my kids are angry at me because they say, "What happened? You went out of your mind."
Okay, but they're
They-
all college graduates, right? Your kids, and hopefully
They're
they paid off
brainwashed.
all
They're
their.
brainwashed. They don't give me credit for having any intelligence for arriving at this decision that I made. And they say, I said to Dove, to Leia's husband, well, how do you feel about Biden, Trump not accepting the first time ever it happened? Even Gore, who won the election, the Supreme Court said, we're not going to give you another count.
Well, Hillary was also saying that she was saying that the election was stolen and wasn't. They had a whole army of lawyers.
I don't know
and
if you listened to the debate in 2016.
I certainly did.
You know what? They asked Trump, one of the guys,
Oh, if he would accept
would
the
you
results.
accept the, what do you call it,
The
the
results
outcome of the election? And he said, yes, I would, as long as I was elected. He's honest,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that's
He's a
it.
dictator, and he showed that that's true. He doesn't accept it, and he won't accept it.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to.
And he's backing some of the worst people in the world. The guys the president, the guys running for governor, Republican in Philadelphia, the guys running for Senate. They both say things that are so anti-democratic.
Hopefully we will persevere. The country has lasted this long.
We're off to you.
No, we're still
Oh,
talking.
we're
not.
We're waiting for you to say
Oh.
bye-bye.
Oh, I said
Okay,
goodbye.
but anyway, thank you
Thank you for
for
listening.
hearing me out.
Same time next week, 6:30 Wednesday. Have a great day. I love you all. Bye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate